Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Shit That Happens to Me podcast. I'm very excited to be here today with my guest, Richard Shavzin. Hi, Richard.
Hey, Stacey.
How are you?
Oh, I am, I'm actually quite looking forward to this. A, on its own merits, and B, there's just a lot of crap going on in
Yeah.
other aspects. So this will be a lovely bit of respite.
Yeah, you sound surprised that you're looking forward to talking to me
Oh,
today.
no.
Do you go by Rich, Richard, Richie?
I actually go by Richard.
Okay,
I
that's cool.
spent like eh, a couple of years as Rick back in the day,
Oh, uh-huh.
for no other reason than I used to work at National Hardware down on 3rd Street in Milwaukee. And I was in high school, and there was an older guy who was rich and had been rich for years. So they called me Rick. And then I got to college, and a couple of stage managers in the theater department one day said, "You're just not a Rick. You have to go back to Richard." And I went, "I guess you know." So
Okay. So, Richard, you are an actor and director,
yes,
and you are also a litigation business communications consultant. So
also
that's a
true.
bit of a mouthful. Can you just tell me what that means, please?
Sure. So for the last 25 years or so, maybe a little more, um, part of my practice, because when you're in theater, you wear a lot of hats to make a living,
Mhm.
is that I have spent quite a bit of time training litigators and business people, but litigators specifically in basically presentation and communication skills, both for court, for um, uh, witness prep, and for depositions and things like that.
I love that. That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
It can be.
Yeah. Okay. So, Richard, do you know how I know you?
Yes, I actually do. Your brother-in-law, Eric, right? It's your
Yes.
brother-in-law.
Yes.
Went to high school with my younger brother Jeff,
Yes.
and they were only a year behind me, so I knew Eric as well, not as well as my brother did.
I'll just say, Eric, who does not listen to the podcast, you know, he's missing out. I think his daughter listens when she's not at med school. And I know that her daughter's boyfriend, Matt, listens. So shout out to Matt and Becca. But I don't know what I was going to say. Oh, so yes. So it was Jeff who kind of got us, talking. And I just want to say this one like random thing, um, because I think your sister Donna,
Mm-hmm.
she has a couple of boys that went to camp with my kids. I think my older son Zach
Huh.
might have been their camp counselor, and we see Donna and we see Leo various places. And whenever I say something about them for whatever reason, Steve will look at me and go, "Well, she's a Shavzin, so she's really nice." So
Oh,
you
isn't
you
that
have
sweet?
yeah, you're like kind of known to my family as just this really nice family. And you must be from the West Side because he's from the West
Yes.
Side and he's got all of these maybe a chip on his shoulder, maybe just like the West Side people are nicer than the East Side people. We don't have to go into that. I'm from Chicago. I trump it all, but anyway. So you're actually in Chicago now.
Yes, I've
That's where
been
you live
here
now.
for actually a month ago. It was 40 years.
Oh my goodness. That's
I left Milwaukee in 77,
yeah.
went to Madison, and then came here after Madison.
It's probably been 40 years since I've lived in Chicago. Maybe a little less than that, but yeah, I love Chicago. So you have some interesting. So your brother Jeff said to me, you should talk to Richard. He's got some stories. So you sent me this list of stories, and I really want to start with this first one. I don't know if you remember, but you were like a bodyguard. So tell me about that.
Yeah, for one glorious night, one night and one night only.
One night in Milwaukee.
Yes. So, boy, how does this start? This actually starts, believe it or not, because Milwaukee used to have a Nazi problem.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not talking about 1939 to 43ish with the Bund and all that. That's pretty well established. But this was in the 70s.
Yeah.
And there was a group of Nazis, full uniform, brown shirt, black boots, the swastika armband, the whole nine.
Yikes.
And they would be on the street handing out literature and standing downtown on Wisconsin Avenue, sort of near I don't know if it's still there, but the museum or the library. Wasn't it like on 4th or 5th in Wisconsin, something like that at one point? I don't know. Anyway.
I wasn't here then.
And right, exactly. And then there was disagreement on how to deal with that. Mm-hmm. Some people said, leave them alone, don't give them the oxygen, but they're out there in the middle of downtown of what at the time was, I believe, the 11th largest city in the country. So not everybody agreed to do nothing. And there was a group that sprang up, and it was pretty widespread for a while, called the Concerned Jewish Citizens, and it ended up at its height probably about 3,000 members. And they had a speakers bureau and an educational arm and things like this. And there was a very tiny offshoot of it that was the security and surveillance team. I was the kid. I was 18. I was the youngest by a decade easy, and most of the guys were in their 40s and 50s. And what we would do is basically keep tabs on these guys. We knew who they were. We knew their addresses. One of us had a friend who was a cop who would run license plates of people who went in and out of their meetings, because we would sort of surveil their meetings, try to keep a low profile. Anyway, so
kind of like the Milwaukee Mossad, huh?
Wow, I like that. I wish we'd have thought of that.
It might be the name of the episode now.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we had this group where we were doing these things, and one night Menachem Begin came to speak. I don't remember if it was don't remember the venue. It might have been the JCC. I don't remember what it was. But he was not prime minister then. He was just a member of Knesset, and he had one guy with him. And this was sort of at the height of that period. It was not too far from the infamous Nazi march in Skokie, where actually they called us to consult on that because we'd been dealing with it for a long time. And anyway, so we just basically volunteered to be bodyguards, stay in the hotel. We took turns rotating outside his room just for the night. And that was really kind of it. The daunting part, the sort of, opening your eyes, especially me as an 18-year-old, there was an infamous part of the Milwaukee Police Department called the Red Squad that was everything horrible you'd ever want to imagine as part of being a police force. And it was either just them or them with some feds. We were not sure. But we got to the hotel and we were approached by them. Obviously, it wasn't their job to actually protect him, but they knew what was going on. And as they approached our group, they just addressed everybody by name.
Oh, I mean, they knew your names already.
Oh, yeah. They knew who we were.
Uh-huh.
Ahead of time.
Including you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. You're just this like kid, who probably just graduated from Marshall High School, right? And they knew your name.
Yeah, this is probably, yeah, I would think this was in my either freshman or early sophomore year.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Wow. And so you didn't have to fend anybody off.
no, the
No.
rest of it was actually fairly nondescript.
Yeah.
But even during the talk, we did sort of stand and, that standard sort of, you don't face the speaker, you face the crowd and keep your eyes
Yeah.
open.
Did you have
Because
like a uniform that you
no,
wore? No,
no, just whatever we were
your,
wearing.
your BBYO shirt or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you said you were the youngest, so these were all like adult men, but I'm still imagining like, what did your mother think that you were going to be this bodyguard? Did you tell her?
Probably not.
No. Okay.
I may have. I don't. You know what? I honestly don't remember, Stacey. I may
Mhm.
have after the fact. I may not. I don't remember.
I haven't done anything nearly that exciting in my life, so it's not too late. I could be somebody's no, I could never be anyone's bodyguard, but
It was not as exciting as the wording perhaps
yeah,
suggests.
well, maybe. So, you have another story here about John Wayne Gacy, and I want to hear that one because I have a story I'm going to tell for Steve also. But let's hear your John Wayne Gacy connection.
Sure, and I thought of this actually because I listened to your pilot episode,
Yeah,
and then a few others where you refer to the murderinos, which
yeah,
a term which makes me howl, by the way. Um, but yeah, and this was just as an actor. Many years ago, there was one of those tabloid TV news magazines called Inside Edition.
yeah.
Inside Edition and hard copy, you know, back before Bill O'Reilly became, full on.
Hang on, are you tapping something? Oh,
Oh, I was for a second. I will stop.
okay.
Yeah,
Sorry about
I
that.
got it. Um, anyway, so they did a what they called Serial Killer Week
Oh,
on Inside Edition, and every day that week they had their I think it was a half hour story based on a different serial killer, and they were trying to be pretty authentic about it. And so for the John Wayne Gacy episode, they came and shot in Chicago,
mhm.
and I got a role, and they shot it actually around town using the actual locations, including the bar in unincorporated Des Plaines where Gacy used to hang out. That was his bar.
Yeah.
And I ended up being cast as just this a buddy of his that he played pool with, and so I'm playing pool at the bar with a couple of locals who were extras that they just brought in who actually hung out at the bar, and some other people, and there were maybe a half dozen of us or so actors for the scene that night. It was an overnight shoot. It was an all night shoot, and so we're doing the scene, we're playing pool, and then the guy who was playing Gacy would come over, and he and I had a little conversation, and then that was it. And they cut the scene, and we moved on. But it took a while to shoot, and there was a couple of other things a couple other scenes being shot in the bar. And at one point on a break, I'm out having a cigarette. I smoked back then, and the technical advisor on the shoot, and this is kind of cool, was the actual detective who arrested Gacy.
Oh, wow.
He was the technical advisor. They hired him to be the tech advisor on the shoot. And I'm out having a cigarette, and he's there too. And he sort of pulls me aside at one point. He said, "By the way, you know who you're playing pool with?" And some local extra as far I knew. And he said, "Yeah, he does hang out here, but that guy has killed a few people, and he's got a rap sheet as long as your arm. He would just as soon slit your throat as say hello." And frankly, he could not have been a nicer guy in circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, I took the cop's word for it. Absolutely. I have no doubt that was all true, but it was his brush with showbiz or something. I don't know.
So this was the guy who was the local they brought in.
This was just somebody they assigned one extra to shoot pool with me until the Gacy actor came in, and we have.
Yeah.
So we did that, and we had the shoot, and it was fine.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks later, we get a phone call. Of course, this is in the days there was no email, there were no cell phones. We all got calls from the director of the piece, who apparently was unhappy with the editing that the producers and the network did on his masterpiece of an episode of Serial Killer Week, and was going to come back to Chicago. I'm not kidding. Was going to fly back to Chicago with, my hand to God, the director's cut of this ridiculous half-hour, tabloid news magazine, so we could see his, presumably the auteur that he really was.
Oh boy.
So fine. So why not? It's a lark. He comes to town. This is a couple weeks after that, and rents there's a little bar down on Armitage that had a big screen, a drop-down screen for, I don't know if it was for football or whatever it was. And he rented this place, and we all went in there, and of course, we're all going to love it, because no matter what you're doing, a lot of what you shoot ends up being edited out, right?
Yeah, right.
And we're actors, so we want to see ourselves as much as possible. And this was going to be a lot more of that, so fine. So we watched that, and it's a big old thing, and almost the whole cast is there, and it's a lot of fun. And the detective was there, the tech advisor, the guy who arrested Gacy. And so the director gets his applause, and very nice, and we all loved it because there's more of us.
Yeah.
And it's getting later, and it's getting close to bar time, and it's probably about easy 1:30 in the morning, and there's maybe 5 of us left. Maybe. The director's gone, and we're sitting around, and obviously pretty loaded at this point. And the detective, the guy who arrested Gacy, does one of these, and I this is a podcast, so your listeners can't see this, but
no, there's video. It's on YouTube.
I know. So he does one of these. He does a look over the shoulder, like a who's looking, who's listening, and he reaches into his wallet. And he opens his wallet and pulls out John Wayne Gacy's American Express card that he kept as a souvenir.
What?
Absolutely.
I don't know how I feel about that. Oh my God. Yep. That's so bizarre. Like, I knew serial killers kept souvenirs. I didn't know the cops who arrested them kept souvenirs.
Well, here's one example.
Boy. Wow.
So
did you all ooh and ah and everything?
I mean, we kind of did. I mean, and not put on. That was legit. That was like, are you kidding me? So.
Oh my goodness. So were you in the episode?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we could watch it. We could watch you in it.
Oh my God. Our old episodes of Inside Edition still extant?
Maybe.
I have. There's a question for IMDb.
Yeah, right. Well, you probably don't know this, but I was an extra in a movie back in, I don't know when it was, February or something last year, a local movie being shot at the War Memorial. And it was a really big deal for me to do this. Like, I sent in a headshot, and I just fit the characteristics they needed. There were a lot of extras. It's not like it was just me. And I was there for hours, and I did this whole thing about how I bought a new coat to be this extra because we were filming outside. And I'm sure I was the only person who bought clothes to be in a role that I was not paid for, but
Probably true. And
Yeah.
for the record, the new term of art, we don't use extras anymore. I did it before because back then that's what it was. But just FYI, now it's background actors.
Background actors. I like that much
Is the
better.
new term of art. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't know if I'll even be in it. Like the whole thing could get cut for all I know. But
I'm going to take just a weird question, coincidence flyer. Was this Alice Austin's movie? Was she producing? Was this about Eastern European immigrants?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This was in Milwaukee. It was a murder. It's like a mystery called Corridor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
I got a friend up there who's a producer, and she produced a movie recently. So.
Okay. Well, I'm available if. Anyway. So, but I was going to tell. This is a little anticlimactic now, but Steve's John Wayne Gacy story, which may not even be a John Wayne Gacy story, but because John Wayne Gacy spent some time in Milwaukee. I can't tell you how much time, but I know that he spent some time in Milwaukee. And Steve told me the story of once he was like walking down the street. Maybe he was going somewhere to play basketball. Maybe I don't know. He's short. I can't imagine he was playing basketball, but nevertheless, that's what he was doing, walking down the street. And I'm just imagining him. I've embellished the story because I don't know if it's true, like wearing basketball shorts and like a tank top, maybe. And, he had this like big, like Jufro at the time, and he's got real dark skin. So, nice looking young man walking on the street. And he said like some car pulled up next to him with this guy in it and was like, hey, you want to play basketball? And Steve was like, okay. So he like started playing basketball with this stranger.
Right.
I think that's weird. And then, and so I decided it was John Wayne Gacy. And the guy got a little weird with Steve, and Steve was like, okay, I have to go, and left. So was not murdered by who I think might have been John Wayne Gacy. But yeah, so that's my Steve John Wayne Gacy story. Steve's like, I don't think it was him, but I'm like, well, you don't know that. And why would you go play basketball with a total stranger who pulled up next to you in his car and was like, hey? But I don't know, maybe men think differently than women. Like, of course, women would never do that.
Well, I guess there's something iconic about pickup basketball. I don't know.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's legendary in song and story. The only other Gacy thing that I remember as being sort of an indicator of how much of a cultural touchstone it had become was I moved to Chicago from Madison in right around this time in '81. And my a roommate and I moved down, and then we had two other friends who were my two partners in the comedy team that I was with for many years. And we would hang out at their place a lot, the two of them, and the neighborhood kids. And like they did like balloon animals, and we were, comics. And so we'd sort of cottoned on to the neighborhood kids. And one of the games, legit straight up, that these neighborhood kids, and I'm talking between the ages of maybe 9 and 16, 9 and 15, something like that, the game they would play is Gacy in the Bushes.
What?
A hide and go seek thing called it Gacy in the Bushes.
That's terrible.
Yeah, but welcome to Rogers Park,
I guess, yeah. What's that game that people play outside in the dark? Something about graveyard, something like you just run around like, in the dark. Yeah, I don't know.
No.
And maybe it's a Milwaukee thing. That's why I can't remember it. But all right, Gacy in the bushes, huh?
Right?
Yeah. I don't remember playing that myself, but
No, I think that's a little after our time.
Yeah,
but Yeah.
Okay. So let's see how we doing on time. We're okay. I think we got at least one more story, maybe two. So you tell me, what do you want to tell me next?
Um, Let me think. Oh, real quick, as I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna do a quick shout out for another podcast.
Okay.
So, my two nieces who grew up in Atlanta but are now both in Chicago, um, with me here, for the oddest of reasons, only one of them is a fan of General Hospital and one of them wasn't. But they're doing a podcast of called Generally Not at a Hospital, and
Okay.
everything between that's in parens.
Yeah.
And they just dissect episodes of General Hospital.
Like
And
old episodes.
what's that?
Old episodes, right? Because is it still on?
Uh, it was as of when they started the
Oh,
podcast
okay.
a couple year or two ago. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. When I was growing up, my mother was the Doctors and Days of Our Lives
Oh, uh-huh.
my entire childhood. So
Yeah.
I like burned into my brain is that stupid music and the like sands through the hourglass.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, but
Okay.
oh,
Generally, what is it?
generally not at a hospital.
Not at a hospital. Okay, cool.
It's hilarious. It's just pretty.
Okay. Nice.
Um, so I was arrested for speeding. There's a story.
Arrested? What do you mean arrested? Like not just a ticket?
Right. Back when this was, and this was I was still in college, and I think this was either it was winter break, either 79, 80 or 80, 81. I don't remember which. My college girlfriend, who was from DC, had to go home to have some sort of maybe her wisdom teeth out. I can't remember, some sort of dental surgery. She had to go, and uh, so she and her brother, who was also in Madison, drove home. And she, we were talking on the phone. She said, "Oh, you should fly out." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not just going to drop everything and fly out. I have to work it up." Which, so of course I did. And so it was great. We hung out for 4 or 5 days, and we drove back from Washington D.C. to Madison, Wisconsin, with the three of us, our luggage, two cats, and a litter box in a Volkswagen Beetle.
Okay. What
Um,
color?
it was forest green, as I recall.
Okay.
It was like a dark green. We're all the way. I mean, it was insane trying to deal with this on a cross-country drive, as you may well imagine. Cramped as hell. The cats,
Yeah.
the litter box. It was just totally nuts. And we've driven all the way. We are 1 mile, I shit you not, from the Wisconsin border.
Yeah.
And we get pulled over for speeding. And in those days, if we had been in Wisconsin, they would have taken my license,
Yeah,
and sent me on my way with the ticket, right? However, in Illinois back then, and I have no idea if this is still, no, it's not true anymore, actually, I don't think. But if you're from out of state, that's no good. They won't just take your license. You either have to pay the cash bail, and I was a starving college student, or that. So from 1 mile from Wisconsin, this guy drove me all the way back to Rockford.
Oh my goodness.
And put me in, first of all, these elevator, right? Like you get in the elevator and the prisoner, here I am. I'm like, my hair's down to here, man. I'm just a hippie kid trying to get back to college. And there's a special, like a little box inside the elevator with its own little set of doors. So, you're reducing the risk of the violence from the. So I'm like, really? So yeah, made me get in there. We go, puts me in a cell with the metal cot. I mean, this was right out of every bad movie.
Yeah.
And what I had told my girlfriend was, go to Madison, wake up my roommate. He owes me $100. Bring it back here and get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
She was smarter than that because this was 19, like I said, either 79 or 80, I can't remember. And there were these brand new things
Oh,
that
ATMs,
they weren't called ATMs yet.
cash machines.
No, not even then. And they were invented, by the way, they were rolled out in Wisconsin before anywhere else in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And they were called time
Oh,
machines.
right.
T
Why were they
Y M
called that?
T Y
Yeah.
M E. Take your money everywhere.
Okay.
They were called time machines, and they had this.
Yeah.
It was a red logo. If over a certain age, people will remember. And so all she had to do was go across the state line,
Yeah.
find the closest time machine,
Mm-hmm.
get the whatever for bail was 100. I think it was $100. And so that saved me like 2 hours, easy 2 hours.
Yeah.
So she just got that, drove to Rockford, got me out. But
How fast were you going?
oh, I don't remember.
So
Do
just
not
even if you
remember.
might have been going 10 miles over the speed limit, they put you in jail for that?
Speeding was speeding, apparently. It was probably
Oh,
more than 10 over. I mean, we just driven across the country in a
yeah.
sardine can,
Yeah. Yeah.
probably very eager to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Boy, what a rebel you are. Bodyguard, you've been arrested.
Well,
Wow.
it's not very, being arrested for speeding is not the most sexy thing on earth.
I've I mean, I've gotten tickets for speeding before, but I try not to I try to keep it under 10 now.
Yeah, well, they're using it as a big cash cow in Chicago right now, so
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
actually in the news quite a bit.
I think that just reminds me, which this is the other way around though. Like when I was in, back at the time, the drinking age was different in Wisconsin than
Yep.
Illinois. So the drinking age, I think, was only 18 in
When I
Wisconsin.
was a kid, it was 18 for everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in Illinois, it was 19.
No, I think it was
Maybe
21 back then.
I don't think it was, because I know when I turned 19 at college, that was when I had my first drink.
Oh, they had some places you could at 19 you could have beer and wine and then liquor not till
Maybe,
21. Maybe that was,
maybe.
remember.
But anyway, so I had a boyfriend, who he was younger than I was, and he used to. I'm sure he wasn't the only one. He used to do this thing where he would drive into Wisconsin to drink, with his. I'm probably not even a fake ID. He would drive into Wisconsin to drink, and then drive back drunk. So maybe they thought you were one of these guys who was doing that. I don't know. You had like a cat in the car, so probably not. But yeah, that's
And a
very
girlfriend
silly.
and a brother and a lot of suitcases.
Yeah. That's so funny. Well, I think we have time for one more. So tell me about this. You took a trip to Israel.
Oh, yes. So that was also a very long time ago. I had been dragooned into, as a freshman, being the chair of what used to be called the Jewish Welfare Fund, and eventually that morphed into what they called the Federation Campaign. But they
Okay.
had a campus division, and somebody roped me into this. I don't remember who, into chairing the campus thing for UWM, because I hadn't gone to Madison yet. I was desperately trying to get the hell out of Milwaukee and get to Madison. So we went, and this was the winter of my freshman year. So December of 75 to January of 76. And we were there it was a like a 10-day, 7 or 10 day, I don't remember, trip with the Sachnut, with the Jewish agency. And we got to see some really cool things and meet some incredible people who spoke to us, like the priest who was the actual guy on the Exodus who was like portrayed in the movie
Uh-huh.
Exodus and in the book. That's a real guy. And anyway,
Oh.
it was fascinating. So we had a couple of days at the end on our own, and I went up to Haifa to see a friend of mine's girlfriend who was back there. She's from there. And I was meeting a friend back for one night. We were going to splurge, get a hotel in Tel Aviv before we had to fly out the next day. And we just wanted to spend one day, hang out, whatever, right? We had one more day. So we meet back in Tel Aviv. We get a hotel room for one night. All we did, we dropped our luggage and just started walking. We just wanted to walk and see everything. And so we're in downtown Tel Aviv, and we walked all the way into old Tel Aviv, and then into Yaffo, and then into old Yaffo. So we've walked a few miles.
Yeah.
And we're walking down the street in old Yaffo, and it's like parts of Jerusalem where literally you're on stones that are 2,000 years old, and we passed, and I saw just this storefront with a bunch of buckets of old rusty nails. And I went, well, this is weird. And I looked around and I was like, oh my God, they're selling those. This is a hardware store. And they are selling, recycled used nails that pounded straight, whatever. And at the time I had been working in a hardware store for a few years, from high school and college. And I thought, oh, wait. Hey man, we got to go in here. Let's go into this hardware store. And I was having a blast. And it was like looking at where I was working, but 200 years earlier, it would.
Yeah.
And so we're looking around, and it's great. You don't buy paint, you buy pigment and oil separately, and you get a mix. Great. We had a lot of fun. Let's head out. We're heading for the door, and my friend notices the guy in front of him has on a pair of DC overalls. Now, this meant nothing to me. In the Midwest, we have Oshkosh Bagosh. Those are the art, especially in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
But DC overalls are Oshkosh Bagosh for the East Coast.
Okay. Yeah.
And so he assumed, hey, this guy's probably an American. He says, hey, are you an American? And yes, the three of us start talking. And it turns out that, and I was sitting there witnessing this conversation going, why don't I have a camera? These two guys figured out over like 15 minutes that they grew up less than 3 blocks apart in Brooklyn.
Oh my.
And never met, knew dozens, if not hundreds of people in common, but had never met.
Yeah.
There was a borderline, one to one school, one to another school. And so they're having Old Home Week. And this guy said, yeah, I'm here. I'm working for this artist. At the time, the Israeli government was subsidizing artists to live in these huge abandoned mansions and do their art and just basically create. And this guy was like a personal assistant. And he said, yeah, you want to walk over? So we walked over to the mansion. We saw he had canvases. I mean, when I say mansion, these had to be 30-foot ceilings. He had canvases that were 2/3 that high.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it was just spectacular. And we spent a couple hours there and drank some ouzo, and eventually, middle of the night, wandered back to our hotel in downtown Tel Aviv and flew out the next day.
Yeah. Wow. What a small world.
Right?
Yeah. That's so interesting. I'm fascinated just in general by all of the Chicago and Milwaukee connections anyway. People that like I've met who were from Milwaukee. Like I used to work at Lord and Taylor during like a break from college, and I met this young woman there. Her name is Lisa Seinfeld, and she's actually from Milwaukee, and she knew Steve, but I didn't know Steve then. So, like years later, like I meet Steve and we get together, and, he knows her. And when I first moved here, I didn't know anybody. And so and Steve was working, and I had, a small child and a baby, and I made friends through like my kids, right? Like nursery school, like the moms and stuff like that, and found myself like drawn to a lot of, women that I later found out like Steve knew anyway. Steve grew up with or went to college with or high school or things like that. So just small world.
Yeah, and it's back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
I have what some people consider an example of heresy, although there are a bunch of us. I have a T-shirt that's a combination Packers Cubs.
Oh, uh-huh.
That makes a lot of people's head explode down here.
Well, I have talked about how I have become, like a Bucks fan and a Brewers fan. I can't say I'm a Packers fan. That's more complicated, but yeah, and all of my, Chicago friends are really mad at me about that. But it's not easy living here, living with like a bunch of men who are, really into sports. And my son worked, for the Bucks, and now he works for the Brewers. So it was bound to happen. So, and I'm going to all
Sure.
the Brewers playoff games. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for a long time, I was in a beautiful shape because I had the Cubs in the National League and the
Mhm.
Brewers in the American League, and it was great. And never, I should only have the conflict of having that be the World Series, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then, Selig went and screwed me up by putting the Brewers in the National League. And I
Yeah.
mean, I don't disagree with his assessment that Milwaukee is more of a National League town because of the Braves, and he wanted to set up the rivalry anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that really messed with me. And then, but on the Bucks, I was a 12-year-old kid when they won the championship in '71.
Mhm.
Um, and I have a Lou Alcindor autograph. So,
Mhm.
Oscar Robertson, Bobby Dandridge. Oh, I love that team.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
was this was great fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I was all over the Bulls during the 2 3-peats, and
Yeah, me too. Me
but
too.
um, but the last few years I have definitely gone back, and I still have here. Now this says it all. I still have games 4, 5, and 6 of the finals on my TiVo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
that was so exciting. Yeah.
I haven't rewatched them yet, but it's on the
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Richard, it was so fun to talk to you. I really
I
appreciate you
gotcha.
taking the time. And I we got this far without any barking.
I'm
Uh,
impressed.
so, but I hope I can like have you back sometime and we can do some more stories. I'm sure more shit will happen to you. Um, as it does to all of us. So thank you so much. And
It's been
I
a
might
pleasure.
have, I'm wondering if I should do that again um, without barking in the background. Let me just close the door. 1 second. Do you mind? One
No,
sec.
no, no, no.
Okay, here I go. I'm going to do it one more time.
Okay.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time and telling me your stories and for not
Stacey,
being a crumb.
I had a blast, and I love that. By the
Yeah.
way, that whole opening of the whole raison d'etre
Yeah.
for this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I love it too. That was a really fun experience. We'll have to have you come back on the show sometime. I'm sure there'll be more shit that'll happen. And
Always
yeah,
is.
you have a good rest of your day. Okay.
You do the same. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye. All right. That was great.